It's a black myth Wukong. The monkey was fast as lightning. It was a little bit frightening. Alright everyone, today we have Black Myth Wukong in 4K on a 1080 Ti. Now the performance is not going to have ray tracing of course, but this will give an overall view of what the 1080 Ti can still do. So we are at 4K low settings and a low super resolution, and we are hitting 60 frames per second. Absolutely beautiful game. Again, the depth of this game is insane, especially even on low quality. Again, this is 4K, so a little bit more of a depth into it, but still just on low. Let me know in the comment section below what kind of graphics card you are running Black Myth Wukong on and what kind of frames you are getting. If you have not seen it already, I do have a Black Myth Wukong 1080 Ti on 1080p from medium settings to cinematic. Today we're going to be going over from low, medium, high, very high, and cinematic performance in 4K. I don't believe it's going to be able to make it all the way till the cinematic performance, but as long as we keep the super resolution to a somewhat minimal, we should be able to get at least some decent frames, so that way it doesn't look too terrible. Again, the system is a 12600K overclocked to 4.8 GHz on the P cores and 3.6 GHz on the E cores. The RAM is at 6800 megatransfers per second with it's Hynix M die, so it has a very nice tune on it. And it's 48 gigabytes. The 1080 Ti with its 11 gigabytes of VRAM probably helps it quite a bit in this benchmark. This benchmark can be found on Steam. It came out August 12th. So not too long ago. Alright, we got 60 frames per second, 61 frames per second on the max, 56 on the minimum, 59 on our low, and 4.9 gigs on the VRAM. And that's on low settings, so 5 gigabytes on VRAM on low. The game specs say you should use a i5 8400 or a Ryzen 5 3600 with a 1060 6 gigabyte or an RX 580 8 gigabyte. That's its preferred rating. So now we're going to go on to medium settings. We're going to go all medium settings on this. This is at 4K medium settings. Hopefully we can stay around 60 frames per second, because that will give the game an overall better feel, even with the lower settings. At 4K 60 frames per second still looks absolutely incredible. The developers of Black Myth Wukong sure outdid themselves. If there are any graphics cards you would like me to try out in my next benchmark session, let me know in the comments section below, and I'll try to do the benchmark that you would like me to use and the graphics card. This game is very, very well done. Looks so good. So we got an average of 60 frames per second, a maximum of 66, a medium of or a minimum of 48, a low of 59. It used 5 gigabytes of VRAM. So in our next test here, we're going to be going into the settings, and we're going to change it to high settings, and we're going to rerun the test. Again, with super resolution, we should keep that to low no matter what. If you like this kind of content, feel free to hit that like button and smash that subscribe button. If any of you play Black Myth Wukong, let me know in the comment section below. And what graphics card, what CPU, and what kit of RAM you are currently using. This game did hit the market quite hard, and people are still playing it like mad. I can see why. So with 1080 Ti, we do not have ray tracing. So if you have a 1060, 1070, a 1080 or 1080 Ti, or a RX 580, RX 590, then in this game you will not see the maximum that you can see, as you will not get the ray tracing out of it. I will be testing this game on 1080 and 4K on a GTX 1070, a RTX 2080 Super, and a RTX 3070 Ti later in the future. Alright, now we are up to high settings, 4K. Again, we're keeping the super resolution somewhat low, as this is very strenuous on the system that you are currently using. Doesn't matter if you have a good one, this is a hefty game at 4K. Still staying around the 60 frames per second, which is quite good. Things seem to be fairly stable looking. There are some glitches here and there, but that could be from the benchmark itself and not going to be put into the actual game. Like, you wouldn't feel it in the game. Overall, a 1080 Ti at 4K is holding up pretty good on high settings. Alright, let's look it over. So we got about 58 frames per second average, 25 on our low, 63 on the max. Our 5% was 55 frames per second, and it used 5.5 gigabytes of VRAM. Overall, that's pretty good on high settings. So our next up settings that we're going to do is very high. Alright, so we are chugging a little bit on this one. Very high settings at 4K, and we are getting around 40 frames per second. Alright, let's look at the score for very high. Average of 43, minimum 37, maximum 49. Our 5% low is 39, and it used 6.1 gigabytes of VRAM. Alright, next up, the cinematic view at 4K on Black Myth Wukong. This should look very nice. I don't think it's gonna give us as many frames as I would hope, but it should still look very nice. Alright, so right off the bat, we are chugging right around the 40 frames per second mark again. Super resolution is on low. If I put the super resolution on, it is basically unplayable. This is at least somewhat playable at 4K cinematic. Again, this card does not have ray tracing, so you don't get the full experience, but that's okay. Still looks fairly good. It is chugging though around 30 frames per second. That is quite rough on a 1080 Ti, I must say. Alright everyone, this is the final one. This is it. 37 frames average. A low of 32. A maximum of 44. A low percent 5, or 5% low, is 34. And it used about 6.1 gigabytes of VRAM. So if you have a 1060 or like an A2000, you would not be able to play this game. This game would be too much for it. You'd have to definitely put it down to low settings for sure, as low settings does use about 4.8 gigabytes of VRAM. This is overall a fairly hefty game, but looks very nice. Black Myth Wukong, if you haven't played it, you should go try it. As always everyone, thanks for watching, and don't forget to get her done.